Hi, I'm Dr. Gary Sachs, and I'm here with Theresa Schmidt. We're both from Sachs Wellness Center, and today we're going to talk about vitamin D.
Yes.
And right now it's not sunny outside, but we're getting more sun as some of these days. So, so I know you wanted to kind of update people and give them an idea of, okay, it's June. What should we be thinking about, you know, with vitamin D?
Yeah, and that's so true. It's June. We, at the 45th parallel, where we are in Michigan, we should start getting some D about the middle of April. Normally, we're telling people to start tapering off after the middle of April, but this year was not a very nice spring. And it's honestly, last Tuesday, I started finally being able to take people off their vitamin D. So that means they got some sun over the holiday weekend and enough to build up that they could actually come off it. So the things I think are important for people to know is at our place on the planet, there's a limited amount of time that we can get vitamin D3. And that for here right now is probably about 11:30 to 1:30 or 2 o'clock.
Those are prime time.
Yeah. Maybe a little off, but not much from that. So that means you have to be out there with short sleeves, short pants, because we have to have surface area showing for 20 to 30 minutes. And if we can do that 3, maybe 4 days a week, that's plenty. That's plenty, because we can get 10 to 20,000 IU of D that way.
Yeah.
And we take 5,000 a day. It is a fat soluble we call it a vitamin. It's really a hormone, but it's a fat soluble, so you will store that. So you'll store enough for 3 or 4 days. So I tell people, you know, especially if we're testing them, okay, you don't test for it right now. You don't need to take it every day. But if we have 3 or 4 cloudy days in a row, you might want to take some D for a couple days just to build it back up. It's so important. Vitamin D affects 3,000 of our genes that we know of. That's just what we know of at this point. So the regulation of turning on, turning off, and how it functions, vitamin D affects 3,000 of those genes. So how healthy we are, how efficient we are, how well everything works has a lot to do with how much vitamin D we have.
Yeah, you made me think of, you know, this human body goes on and does its thing every day, whether it gets that D that day or not, as far as what we can see. But it works optimally if it gets a D and all the other nutrients too. So it just brought to mind, you know, when sometimes people will say, well, why did I catch a cold now? Or why did I get the flu now? You know? And of course we can't say it's strictly that, but you could look back for most people and you could say, well, I haven't been taking my vitamins, or it hasn't been sunny it's rained the last 5 days and I haven't done anything, you know, and their levels depleted and maybe they didn't get enough sleep, or
they ate some sugar,
or ate some, you know, and then all of a sudden they're more vulnerable. So you bring up such a good point about trying to keep those things steady so that your body can handle whatever comes at it.
Whatever comes at it. And that is exactly why we have a flu season. We have a flu season because of vitamin D. I mean, that's a big part of it. Because by the time we get to February and March, even January, most of us haven't had any D in 5 months, 4 or 5 months, if we're not taking it.
Yeah.
So people are so depleted in D by then that the viruses and the colds can take hold. There has not been, and it's been probably a month, maybe a month and a half since I looked at this again, but there has not been one person that I know of that has died of COVID whose vitamin D levels were over 50.
Yeah, and there are definitely studies showing that the people that had the most severe symptoms and more died had very low vitamin D levels.
Their
you know,
D was depleted.
It made me think of that. I was on that same track with you, because same thing. Why are they predicting a COVID season or a COVID surge? You know, and they're saying it's because it's going to be cold out. You know, the weather changed, right?
Yeah.
You know,
not so much, but and you don't get a cold because you went out in the rain. You get a cold because your immune system was depleted, and part of that immune system is so important is vitamin D.
Yeah.
The other things, like, so we get COVID was actually a pretty good example. When COVID came through in March, in this country, is when it really hit. The northern part of the country had been without D for months, and we got hit really hard. And then towards the spring and summer, the lower part of the country got hit. And so people will say, well, D is so important. Why in the world did they get hit? They get sun all the time. They do. They start going in the air conditioning in April and May. Yeah. So they actually are less in the sun in those times of the year. So that's how it got to go through there. Yeah. And it's pretty blatant. You can look at the map when it went through. The other thing I do want to point out, the darker your skin is, the harder it is for you to get vitamin D. You need more. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So for that person, it may be harder for them to get D in that time frame that I was talking about. Some people with darker skin may very well need to take D year round, which again explains why the people that have darker skin had COVID worse. It hit them worse because they're pretty chronically depleted in vitamin D living in this country. Yeah. So, you know, so the tone of the skin matters, the surface area, how much you're getting out there matters, when you get out there matters. You can still get sunburn 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, but you're not going to get any D from that. Yeah. There's going to be no D. D doesn't come through the windows. If the sun is hitting you in the window, it doesn't come through windows. It's none of that.
Doesn't matter if it's sunny. It matters if you're in the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be in the sun in the right time, and you have to have some surface area showing. It doesn't help if just your hands and face are out there. So if you can get out there and pull your pant legs up and pull your sleeves up, so much better. And it's only 20 minutes. So if you can get that D is so much better than the oral D that we have to take most of the year.
You know, it's one of the advantages that people like me have. I have more surface area that shows.
You do.
You know, when
you do. But you have to wear shorts too.
Yeah, right.
So that hopefully gives people a little bit better idea when we're talking about vitamin D and getting vitamin D. And it isn't just a matter of, you know, well, I get out there for a couple hours during the day. It's when you're getting out there that's important. Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yep. Yeah. We hope that helps. And if you have any questions, want to know any more about this, then give us a call, 989-732-7000, or you can reach out through our website, www.sacswellnesscenter.com.